What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are back with another episode of Star Wars Battlefront 2 Mythbusters, this time focusing on what exactly makes you show up on the radar. This is probably one of the more straightforward episodes I've done in quite a while. Essentially what I'll be doing is just going through a heap of different weapons and abilities and stuff like that, and simply seeing which of them do or don't make you show up on the enemy's radar, as obviously it's something that we can't really just know from playing in a regular match. So without wasting any time, we are going to jump straight into it, and the first thing that I wanted to test was just the regular blasters. Now you can see as you shoot you do show up on the radar, however it's not actually a little red dot like I assumed it was. It's actually only the direction you're coming from, which obviously we sort of see through our own minimap, but I did assume that when you were close enough it would show you your exact location. However, that is obviously not the case. So you can see the first sort of shots there, it does show you in the inner ring, and then as you move a bit further back it's showing you direction and technically the distance as well, because you're a little bit further away. So that is how that works. It doesn't show you up as a little dot, only the direction that you are shooting from. The next thing I wanted to test was just a regular grenade, and as you can see that doesn't show up on the minimap either when you throw it or when it explodes either, so that is really no surprise there. Now next up we have the Vanguard, which is obviously technically a blaster, and so this one does of course make you show up just like the regular blasters do. Now the next thing that I wanted to test, which probably seems a little bit odd, is the Toughen Up ability, and this was, obviously not something that I expected to work, but it was worth testing anyway, because oftentimes you do find that the more random things like this do actually work, but as you can see this one doesn't make you show up on the radar. Now the next thing I wanted to test was the Acid Launcher, which as you can see that does actually make you show up on the radar, only when you shoot it though, it's not when it's actually sort of sitting there spraying out the gas. As for the Scan Dart though, I thought this would be the same as technically you're still shooting something, but as you can see it doesn't make you show up on the radar, so it is a little bit hit and miss there. I guess with the Scan Dart it is a little bit different since, technically you're using that to make the enemy show up on the radar, but I'm not going to lie, I did actually expect that to make me show up on the enemy's radar. Now this was the last test for the Assault class, which is the Flash Pistol, and as you can see it does make you show up for both the regular shot as well as the flash shot too, so both of these shots will make you show up on the enemy radar. Now moving on to the Heavy class, and I did kind of start testing these all a little bit sort of in tandem to make it a little bit quicker. The first one was the Detonite Charge, which again it is an explosive, so that does, it doesn't surprise me that that doesn't make you show up. As for the Sentry, as you can see this does make you show up. I actually tested this later with all the other sentries too, and it does work the same. And then as for the Barrage, technically these are obviously explosives, but you are shooting it again, so it seems that anything other than the Scan Dart that you shoot is essentially going to make you show up on the radar. Moving on, we actually have some of the, passive abilities for the Officer class. The first one was the Diffuser, which as you can see, it doesn't make you show up. The next one was the Disruption, which again doesn't make you show up on the radar. And then lastly was the Battle Command, which was kind of a, an odd test, but I thought it was worth it anyway. And as you can see, this one doesn't make you show up either. There were then a few more for the Officer class, the first one being the Homing Shot, which I honestly forget exists, and as you can see it does make you show up. Obviously you are shooting something, so that one does make sense. The next one was the Officer's Turret, which I wasn't really sure about this one because obviously it does shoot, but then technically it's not you shooting, and as you can see this doesn't show up on the enemy radar, so I guess there's really no surprise there, but it was sort of something that I wasn't too sure about because technically it is still shooting. Now lastly for the Officer class we had the Squad Shield, which this one was pretty obvious, but I did actually test shooting inside the shield and it does still make you show up. And then the last test that we had was the Flash Grenade, which again being an explosive I didn't expect this one to work, and that was exactly the case. Moving on, we had the Specialist class, and the first thing I tested here was the Repulsor Cannon, which again, no surprise, you are technically shooting something, and so that does make you show up on the radar. The next thing I tested for the Specialist was the Scramble Infiltration, and for those who don't know this, obviously by the name says it scrambles the enemy radar, and as you can see down the bottom, it is pretty much just making it go crazy, so technically I guess it does make you show up, but it's just completely all over the place and they have no way of telling where you are. Now lastly I tested the Binoculars, and obviously this wasn't going to make you show up on the enemy radar, but I more tested it to see what it would do for my own radar, which you can obviously sort of switch vice versa. Now this one does make you show up as a dot, so that is actually something a little bit different. It's the same as the Scan Dart, it will make you show up as an exact location rather than just a general direction. And as you can see, it does also make you show up through walls as well. Next up we had the Stinger pistol, and again no surprise here, you are shooting something, and so this one does of course make you show up on the radar. Now that is pretty much it for all of the trooper tests. I actually was planning on doing all of the reinforcements in this episode as well, but it is already going a little bit longer than I thought, and there's actually a lot more sort of tests for those reinforcements. So I think I'm going to just split these up into 2 episodes and do all of the trooper ones in this one, and then obviously do all of the reinforcement ones in a separate episode, just to keep them a little bit shorter, because I don't think it's really that entertaining watching like 13 to 14 minutes worth of me just sitting there in arcade. Now lastly, before I head off, there is a reason for not testing every single thing for the troopers. The reason behind that is essentially just because through the testing that I did do, I can obviously tell that certain things aren't going to show up. So for example, obviously the officer's squad shield didn't show up, and the reason I didn't test the bubble shield or the heavy's combat shield is because those do share all the same properties. So there's a lot of things that I didn't test, a lot of star cards and a lot of different abilities. However, all of them have been tested essentially through something else, for example. What I mean by that is, for example, I tested the Sentry ability, and then obviously the other 2 sentries are going to show up. I tested the Vanguard, but that obviously means that the Killstreak Vanguard, for example, is going to show up as well. So it does probably seem like I've missed a lot of things, and that is obviously the reason for that. However, if you guys do want to see just tests for every single thing in the game, then let me know, because I can do a follow-up to this episode as well. But that is pretty much going to do it for this one, guys. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe with those notifications on so you don't miss out on any more Battlefront 2 videos or live streams. Like I said, I will be also following up to this with all of the reinforcements as well. I was planning on doing one for the heroes, but after testing it I realised that they obviously just always show up. So there is going to be one more with the reinforcements, and if you guys do want me to test every single thing for the troopers, then I can do that in a follow-up to that one as well. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.
Roger, roger.